Hello everybody, it's Tommy and welcome back to another Create a Sim for the Disney Save. Today's Create a Sim is the last one for Sulani. We are making the Jolly Rodger crew from the previous speed build of the Jolly Rodger. This is going to include Captain Hook and Mr. Smee and the rest of the crew, which is kind of just like a random grouping of 6 or so other background pirate characters. There was so many to pick from, and like I've mentioned in previous videos, there is so many different options for like renditions of Peter Pan. So I kind of just tried to pick from the original just because that's what I've been sticking with, but I of course did take some creative liberties since a lot of these characters don't really get names outside of Captain Hook and Mr. Smee. So you'll see that they're like, maybe you'll recognize some of them from the films, like you'll see 1 or 2 that are very recognizable, and then there's some where I definitely took my own spin on it and I had to give them their own characters completely. Like they just don't have any personality, basically, rarely any lines, so I could kind of name them whatever I want and do whatever I want, which is always a fun opportunity. Without further ado, let's get into today's character, starting out with Mr. Smee. His name is Samuel, and he is a friend of the world. His traits are clumsy, cheerful, and neat. His career will be like a custom career, which will be first mate. A lot of these guys will either be in some kind of a criminal career, or I'll make a custom career that allows them to basically just live on the boat and do whatever they want, and you can obviously like have them go around and steal things and be kleptos and that kind of a deal. Mr. Smee is a bumbling sweetheart of a pirate. He doesn't fit the usual persona of piracy at all. He likes to clean and cook and tend to the captain. His daily wear usually looks just like he stumbled out of bed. He cares for his crewmates, but the crew sees him as a bit annoying and weirdly docile. The captain appreciates Smee for his ability to cater towards Hook's more lavish needs. Smee is often the cause of one of Captain Hook's plots not working out, either due to pure incompetence or Smee's somewhat pure heart fully putting a stop to it. Smee would be the one to give treasure back or sneak someone being held captive off the ship. I am planning on making a club for them. It'll be called Captain Hook's Crew, I believe, although they'll all kind of live in this household, so the crew is a little bit null and void, but I think the idea of it being there is still a fun one. Smee's hobbies include things such as cleaning, making tea, cooking and baking, plundering, sailing, and sea life. So he's the type of pirate that likes to be on the water. He wants to be out. He would rather not be in Neverland, not dealing with Peter, and just generally likes to tend to the captain. Like he likes to be on the boat, he likes to cook and clean, and he's a little bit of an odd one. The other pirates tend to make fun of him, but Captain Hook obviously would like somebody like that because it's like a personal assistant basically. Next up, we have one that I am naming Bill Jukes. I believe that might actually be a name that is given somewhere in one of the renditions, but this is Bill Jukes. His aspiration is public enemy. He is a kleptomaniac, mean snob. Bill Jukes is as mean and nasty as they come, a classic pirate with interests only in causing chaos and stealing treasure. He's a part of the crew to cause as much criminal activity as possible and get rich along the way. If you recognize him at all, he is the one with the longer red hair and he has one peg leg, and the reason I would remember him is because he's very short with like 5 o'clock shadow and he wears a giant green hat. I tried to match a lot of their clothing as close as possible to what very little shots I could get of them from the given film, but I also wanted them to have like tattered clothing or ripped or holes in it or stains, things that I feel like have had a lot of wear and tear. And then there was also, like I mentioned previously, this level of like cartooniness. I feel like a lot of what these pirates wear is more bright and colorful than Pirates of the Caribbean, for example, so we can get away with like brighter green jackets, and one of the character wears like a really bright pink shirt. So trying to take all of those ideas and make it into something that made sense and felt like really cohesive as a set. That's always a goal as well. Whenever I make like a group of characters, I want them to all feel like they come from the same film. And I feel like from the other Peter Pan characters, I've gotten away with a lot of color and a lot of like almost nonsense clothing, just like weird costumes, weird hats for the Lost Boys characters. So here I could also kind of get away with it as well. We only have 2 official pirates hats, one from the Halloween stuff pack and one from the Get Famous pack. So there is a couple of different options, but some of these guys don't wear any type of pirate hat. They wear a bandana, and I had that problem when I was making Pirates of the Caribbean characters. There is no good bandana that I felt like was appropriate for a pirate. I'm also so surprised with the Halloween pack. I know it was an old stuff pack, but I'm so shocked that we didn't get some kind of peg leg as an addition to put on for your Halloween costume. There were a few pirates that I was trying to make that do have a peg leg, where obviously Captain Hook has his hook hand, and those are just things that we have to kind of ignore. Next up, we have Murphy Black. His aspiration is fabulously wealthy. He is a kleptomaniac, slob, hot-headed sim. Murphy Black is a thief even amongst the crew. He would steal from anyone, even Captain Hook, if he thought he could get away with it. In his mind, getting caught is even sometimes still worth stealing. A few days in prison and an escape plan later, and he's back to taking whatever his heart desires. Now, this pirate in the film, he is like a shorter set pirate. He also wears a bandana. It's red with like polka dots on it. And then he wears this green ensemble. Again, it's like this ripped green t-shirt with these shorter green cargo pants, some kind of a red wraparound belt, and absolutely no shoes. I was surprised how many of these characters are often drawn wearing no shoes. I can't even imagine like running around on the top of a ship deck and it being wet and slippery and having no shoes on, and like the problems that would cause. It makes me feel like a lot of these guys are not actually successful when trying to plunder or do piracy. They basically have no money, they can't even afford shoes, is kind of the idea. So I went with it. I did keep some of them shoeless. It's a little bit weird, but then I thought about characters like Rapunzel, and she also doesn't have any shoes. So if you want to give them shoes, you obviously can. I don't think it's going to affect them in gameplay either way. And Sulani doesn't get cold, so you don't really have to worry about it very much. Now, I also played them up a little bit. I added more scars, some more heavy makeup, maybe some tattoos and body hair, things like that here and there that you're obviously not going to see in Peter Pan. The pack that ended up becoming one of the most helpful when it came to making these Sims was werewolves, because it's one of the only packs we have that offers tattered clothing, and some of them have like werewolf markings on them, like little werewolves or wolves on the clothes, so I couldn't use everything. And then some of it's obviously clearly very modern as well, like jeans that are ripped. So again, couldn't use everything, but the t-shirts were really helpful. I think the particular one I gave this character does have a giant wolf on the back, but it was too perfect not to use. We're gonna ignore it. And speaking of werewolves, if you didn't hear and you missed the last video, my next world for the Disney save is going to be Moonwood Mill. There are plenty of werewolves and occult characters to come, and lots of really, really fun Halloween themed perfect timing October stuff that I have coming out immediately after we are done here with today's video. The next video you'll see will be the very first speed build for Moonwood Mill. I'm really excited, and I hope you guys are happy that we're going with something a little bit more spooky. I've had so much fun with the build so far, and I know I did mention previously that I was going to be putting out a new version of the save file before I did the next world, but I decided to do Moonwood Mill first because of how small it is. It's only 5 lots, and then that way I can include those 5 lots and the couple of characters that are going to live there in the new download version as well. I'm actually working on that simultaneously while I'm doing all of the other things, finishing Sulani and starting Moonwood Mill, so that is still coming. I'm still planning on having that out hopefully very shortly after Moonwood Mill is done, and then those characters will all be included in the new download. I'm really excited. I'll do a tour video, of course, of all the worlds that I haven't done tour videos for so far. I think that would be Henford on Bagley and Sulani and then Moonwood Mill, and then we'll have new downloads, and I'm so excited to share those with you. I feel like this comes up every single time I put out a new version of the save file, so I just wanted to mention that if you're not a patron, you can still download the save. I do not lock it as Patreon only content. A lot of people get confused because I host it over on my Patreon for download, and that's just accessibility, like ease for me, and I know where it is, but it's free to the public. As soon as the video goes live, you'll be able to go over to my Patreon and download it. You do not have to be pledged, just so that's super clear for everybody. Our next character is Mullins Malloy. His aspiration is fabulously wealthy. He is a materialistic, socially awkward, lactose intolerant pirate. Mullins is a bit of a weird pirate. He's very old and a bit out of it, often feeling like he's playing the role of acting like a pirate more than actually being one. He will fake accents and speak in an over-the-top pirate dialogue. Sometimes being around him feels like being with someone that dresses up as a pirate for Halloween and not the real thing. He prefers to stay on the ship, and he doesn't venture out much. Mullins has lots of allergies and has to be careful what he does or what he eats. He's kind of an old kooky one. I went a little weird for him, somebody that doesn't quite fit in. Again, I guess they're all misfits in their own way. Next up, we have Starkey Two Daggers. His aspiration is public enemy. He is an active, paranoid, self-assured sim. Starkey Two Daggers is fit and ready to fight. He's the pirate on the front lines when the crew gets into trouble or raids a seaport. He's cocky, very straightforward and in your face, and paranoid when it comes to friendships. He doesn't trust anyone and he tends to stay quiet, often keeping to himself. In the film, this would be the pirate that you see that's wearing like a tattered pinkish purple short sleeve shirt and then some kind of cut off purple capri pants with like a big black belt and a red bandana. And in a lot of like the art images that I could find of him, he's often carrying a sword and a dagger, or two swords, two daggers kind of a deal. I like the idea of giving them kind of unusual last names. Like they kind of abandoned their former last names. I feel like that's very common with pirates. They find a new name when they start. So Starkey Two Daggers it is, or maybe that's like the name that everyone else sort of gives him and he has adapted over time. A lot of them didn't have any kind of last name listed for obvious reasons. That's like a big common theme whenever I'm trying to make Disney characters. There's just no last name. Even like big main characters like Tiana, she did not have a last name, so I had to make up one. And this time around I felt like I could get away with something a little bit fun for a lot of these characters. Now I did want to lean into the pink for him, which was a lot, I won't lie. Like I was going through the catalog and going through all the purple clothing and it felt kind of odd trying to fit something that would work for him. Like nothing quite looked right. So I decided instead of doing like a tattered look, we would go for something that was just more tropical and fit the vibe of Sulani. Maybe like an open shirt that's in the purple color scheme. His outfit's a lot, like I said, but I feel like you can do it because it's again, it's more of this like cartoony style pirate. It's not as menacing as like true Pirates of the Caribbean. Although I wanted them to all be kind of like bad characters, they're like bad in an annoying kind of way, if you get me. He was also a character that was in really, really good shape. Like he had an incredible build, so I tried to make him look a little bit more like that. A lot of these other ones were really out of shape and all varying sorts of ages, but he looked young and like he works out constantly. I imagined him to be sort of the pirate that when they interact with others, he's the one that goes down and kind of starts and does it first. Like he's got a little bit of an attitude. He's kind of more well-spoken than some of the other ones. Maybe a little bit more posh and just able to interact with strangers outside of like piracy, people who do not pirate and like don't have that pirate persona, a little bit easier. But as a result, he thinks he's kind of better than the rest of the crew. And then we have Tix. His aspiration is fabulously wealthy. He is a mean, materialistic slob. Tix is mean and grumpy. He yells at anything and everything and will freak out at the smallest inconveniences. He doesn't clean at all, including himself. He thinks that seawater spraying on his face when working on the ship is bath time. Tix collects gold things and has a hidden stash of random bits in case he ever needs to abandon this crew. Maybe go off on his own and buy his own ship. While we're creating Tix here, I want to take an opportunity to make a slight correction to my Jolly Rodger speed build video. I said in that video a few times that the Jolly Rodger was a galleon, and just looking through Disney Wiki, the Disney Wiki, which isn't always right and people can correct it, so I go off of what they say a lot just because I feel like I have a poor memory for like every single detail. It's a really good source of information, but it's not always right. But they had said that the Jolly Rodger is a brig, and that makes a little bit more sense given the size of it. I think I mentioned in the video that it looks like a really, really big ship, but not too big. And I guess what I was trying to say is that it looked like a huge brig and not necessarily a galleon, or it looked like a really small galleon. So they claim that it's a brig. I don't know what the actual classification of like what makes the difference, if it's like the height of it, how many levels it has, how many cannons it has, that kind of a deal. But I just wanted to mention that because I feel like someone's gonna comment and let me know that it's not a galleon, because I said it several times in the video and I acknowledge it now. Lastly, for the crew, we have Wibbles McShoot'em. He is a public enemy and an erratic, hates children, evil sim. Wibbles is a little off his rocker and he hates Peter and the Lost Boys almost as much as Captain Hook. He is pure evil, often being the most vindictive and purposefully cruel of the bunch. He would starve any prisoner and enjoys watching others wallow in as much misery as he feels. Captain Hook often avoids Wibbles, not out of fear exactly, but he would rather keep his distance due to Wibbles' constant mood changes. This pirate was built very close to Starkey. He just was wearing slightly different clothing and he had like a winter/sleep hat on, which I think is really funny, especially picturing them running around Sulani with like the winter hats on. I think there's something kind of ironic and fun about that. that, so I totally leaned into it for his character, again with kind of the funky last name. I was surprised that the gallery let me save that. I didn't think that it would allow me to do that last name, but it did. I don't know if it's gonna let me upload it with that last name, so it could change, but I thought it was kind of funny. And then last, but obviously not least, we have one of the biggest Disney villains. I'm so excited to finally bring him to the save. This is none other than Captain James Hook. His aspiration is fabulously wealthy. He is squeamish, paranoid, and he hates children. Captain Hook is the leader of a vicious group of pirates living on a ship that prefers to dock just outside of Mermaid Lagoon. Adults are rare in Neverland, and Hook finds children annoying to say the least, often pondering great atrocities to Peter Pan and the Lost Boys. He would rather there were no children in Neverland, especially not Peter Pan. Hook has faced off with Peter many times, and he's at his wit's end with the child. Hook would do anything to have Peter and the Lost Boys removed from Neverland permanently. He wants to dock the Jolly Roger in peace from their games and plunder and steal as he wishes from those that live on the island. Hook can be very poised and graceful, but is also absolutely terrified of crocodiles, and he loses all grace when they are near. He'll have, I think, a little bit of fame, but very low, just because of that local aspect, and like obviously he's infamous amongst Neverland crew and those characters from Peter Pan, so I feel like I gotta give it to him a little bit. His hobbies include things such as fishing, tea drinking, piracy, and piano. There's kind of this weird complication with his character where he wants to be in Neverland, but only really to mess with Peter, and then the rest of the crew really wants to leave so that they can go back to doing pirate shenanigans pretty much anywhere else in the world, like actual seaports and places where there's actual money to be made. But I imagine there is some kind of money to be made in Neverland, just because they probably wouldn't allow him to stay there. There would be like a full-blown mutiny if there was absolutely nothing in it for the rest of the crew. Although sometimes it is kind of depicted that maybe the crew is going to throw him overboard if they don't get what they want or they're not able to leave sort of soon. So there's like a weird back and forth with his character and like the location and why he wants to be there and that type of a thing. I ended up using the costume, which is literally designed after his character as far as I'm concerned. It is the perfect outfit, and it's so rare that we get something so spot on, so I was really excited to finally use this piece properly for the character that it's definitely most meant for. And that's pretty much going to be it for today's Create a Sim video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, the next video you're going to be seeing will be the first speed build for Moonwood Mill. I'm so excited to show you guys what we have coming up for that. If you'd like to support the Disney Save on Patreon, you can do so by clicking the link in my description box down below or the one at the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you all in the next one.